Welcome to this emergency edition of the Commentary Magazine Daily Podcast. We are recording this on Thursday night, August 29th, though most of you will hear this on Friday the 30th. We have just finished watching the 3-minute, 22-second interview with Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, and Dana Bash, in which we learned that she cooks bacon. They like mac and cheese. She likes more pepper on her mac and cheese, and really enjoyed seeing herself in a photograph where her grandniece had pigtails and she was up on the stage. And that was about as substantive as she wanted to get. The question for my fellow panelists is, did we find out things that we didn't know? Did she help herself? Did she hurt herself? Do you want mac and cheese after listening to Waltz and Kamala talk about mac and cheese? It's a little late for mac and cheese, but nonetheless, panelists here include our executive editor, Abe Greenwald. Hi, Abe.
Hi, John.
Senior editor, Seth Mandel. Hi, Seth.
Hi, John.
Media commentary columnist, Christine Rosen. Hi, Christine. Oh, you're muted.
Hi, John.
And Washington commentary columnist, Matthew Continetti. Hi, Matt.
Hi, John.
Okay, lightning round. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst thing ever, and 10 being she is elected unanimously as president of the United States, how did Kamala Harris do? Matt.
5.
5.
Christine. Seth.
5.1.
Okay, Abe, our Vibemeister, we're going to get to this in a minute, but so I don't want to blow the vibe discussion, but
4.
I'm going to go with 4 also. I'm going with 4. No one got above 5.1. Now, we have to separate out,
But
obviously.
we should do an existential scale in which we look deeply into the void that was the interview, though, because that's
Okay. So in circles of hell, 1 being the lightest circle of hell and 9 being the worst circle of hell. Anyway, let's just, Abe, since we did W the Vibemeister, and since you are our person who has been most positive about Kamala's ability to coast on the vibe, how do you think, given your 4 score, how do you think she did keeping the vibe going, or whether the vibe was somehow interrupted by what happened here tonight?
Well, it's been a long time since I've been endowed with the title, so I intend to make the most of it. Even though my dear friend and esteemed colleague, Matt Continetti, thought that I would come out tonight saying the vibe was smooth, continued, worked for her, she pulled the wool over everyone's eyes, I am going to say that is absolutely not the case. I don't know how bad she did exactly, but the vibe itself was stalled in its track.
It was kind of dreary, wasn't it? It
The
was kind
There was no joy in Mudville.
That is a good word.
Yeah.
I actually think dreary is a good word, and it's interesting.
But it's a particularly good word because the word of the convention was joy.
Right.
And if you follow up joy with dreary, you have now got a gap that you've got to deal with, and that I think is very clearly the case. She, speaking purely in terms of the vibe, I'm not going to get into the substance yet or anything. She came out there. She was not the empress of the DNC, which is what she was going into this. She needs more than Tim Walz, as Christine said, emotional support vice president. She needs an arena with her to handle an interview. Her very sense of self and of confidence, her ability to put over a sentence and a statement was lacking. It was a very different Kamala than the one we saw at the convention.
She was
Because
unsure
we
of
did
herself.
and have
Yes.
Patel
She was she's
Right.
very unsure of herself in this interview. She was the overall vibe, if you will, that I got was she was trying to convince herself of her certainty of her role as much as she was trying to convince Dana Bash or the American
I
people.
think she was mostly worried about mispronouncing Dana Bash's name.
Which she did once and
She
immediately
said
apologized.
Dana once,
right.
just like a normal human being would.
Yeah.
And then immediately corrected herself, and for the rest of the interview would always kind of pause before saying Dana.
Well, that's because at her convention we had a 10-minute North Korean style instructional
Good point.
play on stage where children
Kamala.
were made
Kamala.
to pronounce and then rhyme the name.
Yeah. Dana. Okay.
After
By the
all
way-
that, there's
by the
no
way-
way Kamala could ever mispronounce somebody else.
Okay, so we have Abe's read. Let's just let me step back once more and say Tim Walz was there.
Yeah.
Tim Walz, Tim Walz took up
Tim Wallflower
too much
tonight.
time.
Yes.
Entirely too much time, given that this is the first time a journalist was able to ask her questions. And Dana Bash shouldn't even have asked Tim Walz any questions, in my opinion, except the one she asked him about his lies about his military service or potential lies. But how about Walz on this famous 1 being the worst ever and 10 being she should be be forced to resign and he should be at the top of the ticket? Where are we on Walz's performance? Seth, what would you give him?
I guess I'd give him a 5 also.
Okay, so
Because
you gave her a
he's
5.1,
dynamic.
you gave her a 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Christine, what about you?
He's a 2 for me. He lies so easily. He doesn't know what the truth is.
It's
and
disturbing.
on both of his, yes, exactly. Disturbing. Okay. So Matt's getting the vocab for tonight. Dreary and disturbing. Those
Okay.
are the top 2
Okay.
right there.
But sometimes people who lie easily, that's a benefit to their performance.
No,
Yeah, but you know,
in this case, it's
when
not.
Bill Clinton lies, I always kind of get into it.
Yeah.
I know
Bob
he's
Kerry-
lying.
You wanna
He
believe
knows
him.
he's
You
lying.
wanna believe
It's
him.
kind
Bob
of
Kerry
fun.
said that Bill Clinton was an exceptionally good liar. So
Right.
Tim Walz, we're not judging his lying
Well-
level, but where would you give him overall if you were
Well,
like,
this is the problem, John, because as we've been talking about on the podcast quite a bit, there's how we see things, and then there's how the rest of the country sees
Right.
things. And
Right.
I think if you were just tuning in and you'd only seen Walz maybe give the speech at the convention or seen a few clips, then you would see him respond to Dana Bash's questions and be like, well, that's interesting that she's asking those questions, but he seems to be on top of it. So by that measure, I'd give him a 6 maybe, because he is more confident than Kamala Harris. He's much more practiced at this. I think there's something pathological. I'm sorry, about the way that he performs.
right?
And so if you're unstudied in this and you're just casually looking into it, you may think, oh, well, he seems like he's appropriate for the role. But I look at it and I'm horrified. I'd take her any day of the week if he's the alternative.
Okay.
But I've got to say, his reducing his false statements about his service to a quote grammatical error brings him right down
That's
to it.
amazing.
Brings
so
him
you have a
right down
number?
to a 2.
Oh, the DUI
That's a
too?
two.
Okay,
It's like,
so
well,
we've
my
got two
students
twos.
are...
Yes, that's 2 2s.
We
I
got
just
2
have to
2s,
say
we got
2
a 5 and a
2s.
6. And I'm going to go 3. And here's why. Because though he is fluid and way more fluid than she, his response to the question of whether he had your spokesman said that you had misspoken or that you had, how do you respond? His response was used car salesman level, and that I think ordinary people who are not paying attention could pick up on instantly, which is
Buddy Garrity. You called him Buddy Garrity last week, right?
Buddy
There you
Garrity
go.
from Friday Night Lights, right? Who was in fact a car salesman. He said, "I'm proud of my service. I'm proud of this. I did that. I would never attack anybody else for their service. And I feel the same way about my service as I felt about being a school teacher and about being a congressman and about being a governor. And I'm proud of my family."
He's very
And
proud.
blah, blah, blah.
That was his fallback.
Right. And I'm proud to be on
everything.
this ticket. Now,
And he's proud to go to China 39 times and say that, they just share there in communist China. That's all it is.
Right. Okay. So can have contempt for his positions. I'm saying that as a matter of performance, if you give viewers a little credit for being able to sniff out when somebody is being cagey and tricky and is trying to put one over on you, that was a terrible answer. That's the worst performance that I've seen him give so far.
So can
yeah, go ahead.
Can I make a observation? During the kind of cut-ins when they were showing the candidates on the trail, and then there was a moment in the interview where Dana Bash was with Harrison Walls, I believe at a barbecue joint in Savannah. And I was just studying the nonverbal interactions between the running mates. And when Bash asked Walls about the whole spice thing, which came out of that ridiculous taco video from last week or 2 weeks ago now, the look on Harris's face was very interesting. She was kind of looking at Walsh like, I'm not sure what he's going to say. I'm not so sure about him. I actually rewound it to just look at it. Was a very kind of circumspect expression on Harris's face, which makes me think sometimes she's not even sure what he's going to do or say, or can he even be trusted? And she's the person who selected him to be the vice president.
I just think what's interesting about this is that he's very programmed, right? He hit the marks that he was told to hit. Talk about being a school teacher. Talk about you're the experienced one. Talk about being in Congress and being a governor. Talk about how proud you are to be on the ticket. Say you're proud of your service. Say you'd never attack anybody else for their service. He did all that as he did at the convention, as he's done other places. But the fact that he didn't have anything fresh to say, that he in this 39-day period, or for him it's not been 39 days, it's been 22 days or something, that he has been the vice presidential candidate, that he cannot come up with anything better than, I'm going to not talk about this, which is an indication that he knows that he has done something that he got caught out at and that is indefensible. And that maybe in a different world, him saying, don't trash my service would be sufficient, but it really isn't sufficient unto the day. So that's the performance ratings. Okay.
Well, this is also, by the way, this is the difference between being on the stump and being here, because he's been using that line on the stump. In other words, in front of crowds, he says, like, I would never put down anybody, and they clip it and they think it looks great in front of the crowds. This was another thing where you put him just in a room that looks like a kitchen, and he's just a regular guy.
Okay, so now we should go through this 27-minute interview padded out to an hour, or actually 50 minutes, because that's the best they could do. 27 minutes in an interview. And by the way, I think I came up with my theory about why they were together. And this will go to Abe's point about, I don't think she's going to do another one of these for a while. And she wanted they were going to do it together, get on the record together. And now, what do you want from me? I did the interview. I did an interview. I did the interview. The interview has been done. She was so discomfited there, and she is so terrified of making a Lester Holt level mistake.
And that's why the Bash questioning pattern and tactic were played exactly into that effort, because Dana Bash answered the questions for her, and she can now go back and say, well, I totally addressed that in my CNN interview. I don't need to do that again.
Okay, so let's go through what she did. So the first question was, if you are elected, what would you do on day one? And here's what I managed to transcribe. Okay,
this was the best answer yet.
She said, I will tell you, first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to strengthen the middle class. When I look at the aspirations and the goals of the American people, people are looking for a new way forward. And then there was a bit of an elision. I think, sadly, in the last decade, we have had in the former president someone who has really been pushing an agenda and an environment that has been diminishing the character and the strength of who we are as Americans. So that's what she's going to do on day one? she is going to strengthen the middle class on day one. Well, bully for her. She pulls it off. Then, man, she will be the most successful president in American history. Okay. So then she tried to put a little meat on those bones. She said, we're going to implement our plan for what I call the opportunity economy. Going to bring down the cost of goods, extend the child tax credit to $6,000. And there's the work we're going to do about investing in the American family in affordable housing. Okay. She couldn't even answer what are you going to do on day one when you enter the Oval Office? Again, pretty easy because there are two ways of going. You can go mushy or you can go substantive. You can go, I'm going to take in the fact that I am here where George Washington, obviously he wasn't in the Oval Office, but, where Abraham Lincoln and, did FDR and JFK and my dear friend Barack Obama and, of course, Joe Biden, where they served and where they helped the American people. And then I'm going to sit down with my team and we are going to map out a first 100 days to strengthen the American middle class and get on to Congress this, that, and the other thing to do X, Y, and Z. I just did that right now. Okay, I just did that in 3 seconds sitting here right now. She said 39 days. She didn't have an answer to the question. I thought she was memorizing a lot of note cards. Weren't we told that basically she's been preparing for the debate, memorizing note cards?
She's going to do what Joe Biden did, which is just sit down and issue executive order after executive order after executive
but
order.
A problem,
but she could have said that,
which is that Biden's executive orders reversed Trump's executive order.
Exactly.
And she would be taking over for Biden. So what's next that you can do through executive order? And just, I don't want to mess up the chronology here, but I do think it took a while, but Dana Bash finally called her on it. Dana Bash. I'm just going to refer to her as Bash.
Okay, Bash, go ahead.
Bash called Harris on this locution that the candidate used a few times, which is that we've had a bad decade. A bad decade. I'm running to turn the page after a bad decade. And finally, Bash said, the decade includes the 4 years where you've been in office, right? And then Harris had to change tact and say, well, I mean an era, the era of Trump, which
began about a decade ago.
So it's hard to change a whole era on your first day in office, John. It's going to take it's going to take time. She's going to do the work. It's going to take
an era. It usually takes an era.
She's going to do the work, but she does rely on metrics of time, as we learned in her answer on the Green New Deal.
Yes. But this is what's so
committed to metrics of time.
And this is where I'm going to bash on this, because there were no serious follow-up questions. 12 of the last 16 years, Democrats have controlled the White House. That there is no way that even a moderately nonpartisan reporter shouldn't say, okay, well, you're complaining about all these things. You're saying that this era was terrible, but you guys were in charge. What will you do differently from what your Democratic predecessors did? Nothing. No follow-up questions. None.
She said that
I'm glad you said that.
We needed metrics with deadlines relating to time, as opposed to deadlines that relate to space or deadlines that relate to volume.
Yes.
Deadlines, and this is her word salad problem.
Into the void. That's what she went into.
Okay, we need to talk about the void thing. We're going to get to the void thing in a minute. But so she has these locutions. They're like those Homeric, the wine dark sea, or, fleet-footed Hermes or whatever. The significance of in the significance of this moment, or as we are thinking about the moment in which we are now living, which is how she starts something when she doesn't know what it is that she wants to say, and she starts talking to get there, and then she says these weird
things. I'm going to interrupt just for a second and say, the reason she's been doing that more often is that she's training herself out of the cackle, which was the only truly authentic thing that she would ever express about herself, was the nervous cackle. Instead of the cackle, which became unnerving to people, she now fills it with these prepositional phrases that, if you had to diagram it as a sentence, would be.
I think, when it came to the big picture questions, like What are you going to do in the first 100 days? Which is an opportunity for a potential incoming president to sort of set out a vision. She would have benefited from going very bold. She really would have, whatever that boldness was. Yeah. If it was very liberal, very surprisingly compromised, or neoliberal, whatever it was an opportunity. She would have gotten away with it based on what she has been built up to up into until this point.
Yeah, you sat there watching the interview, going,
shrunk away from the moment.
Right.
Say anything. Say something.
Well, as I said, you can also say nothing that sounds like you're saying something. You just have to have it memorized.
Yeah.
In other words, what I just said, that thing I just said about how day one, drink it in, sit down with my advisors, get going on an agenda we're going to send to the Congress about helping.
Can I quote Kamala herself? Yes. To do that, we can do what we have accomplished thus far.
Right. Okay. Now that's an important point, because Dana Bash, who did not do a very good job, nonetheless touched on things that were like third rails for her, and that she reacted to, though not panicky, like they were third rails. The president called you, said, he was stepping down, right? Did you expect it or whatever? And then there was that question of basically about, do you have any regrets about his things you said about how he was fine? And she said she had no regrets. Now that's she's in an impossible position there. What is she going to say? Yeah, I had regrets, more
than an impossible position. And on this, history will not judge her well, just as it will not judge how all the people who protected Joe Biden from the American people's understanding that he couldn't do the job, and probably right now isn't doing the job. And that's that she is the only person who can trigger the 25th Amendment discussion. She is responsible for making sure that the president can do his job. She did not fulfill that role. That was a basic role.
Right. See, I think the other question is more telling, her response to it, because that's like, hey, where did you guys meet? That's a question that when you appear as a couple, right? Hey, where'd you guys meet? Hopefully you tell the same story, right? But her version of the story was, it was a Sunday, and this might be too much information. And Dana Bash said, well, there's no such thing as TMI, no such thing as okay, might be too much information, but we were eating breakfast, and the president called me, and he said he was stepping down.
She said we were eating breakfast, and my grandnieces said, Auntie, can I have more bacon? And I was like, yes, honey. You can
always use children as a shield in politics.
The best part was where she said, he tells her she's stepping down, and she takes a beat and says, are you sure? Right. And that's how I found out. That was the end of the story. Yeah. I said, "Are you sure?"
Oh no. She made She added.
Yes.
I was most concerned about him. How is he doing? Right.
But she also said she said in response to one of the few follow-ups that Bash added, she said he made it clear, he assured me of his full support to succeed him.
I just want to know what the puzzle was that she was sitting with one of her.
I think it was of mac and cheese. I think maybe it could have been a mac or brisket. Maybe the puzzle of the Passover brisket. The food thing.
I think the bacon breakfasts, by the way, bring Doug Emhoff closer to his religion as well.
I absolutely agree with you. Okay, so we're making fun of her. And that's fine. And
this is America, John. That is.
Politicians are goofy and they say goofy things. But I want to quote another thing that she said. Here is a passage from talking about when Dana Bash said, "How do you feel about the American people kind of feeling that things are lousy and that the Biden administration didn't do a very good job?" Is effectively what the question was. What are you going to keep and what are you going to discard kind of from the administration that you worked for? I maintain that when we do the work of bringing down prescription medication for the American people, including capping the cost of the annual cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000, when we do what we did in the first year of being in office to extend the child tax credit so that we cut child poverty in America by over 50%, when we do what we have done to invest in the American people and bringing manufacturing back to the United States so that we have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, bringing business back to America, what we have done to improve the supply chain so we're not relying on foreign governments to just supply Americans with their basic needs, I'll say that that's good work. There's more to do, but that's good work. Okay. So she just asked a direct question. She embraced the Biden economic agenda. Trump can now fairly and accurately say that in this interview with Dana Bash, she said, we did a good job. There's more to do, but we did a good job. And half of what she said isn't true, right? They didn't create 800,000 manufacturing jobs. In fact, we don't even know what the number is now because they just wrote down 811,000 jobs in the last year. And some of those are manufacturing jobs. And that number has been cited by the Biden administration for a year and a half or a year. And that may be a fake number. Now, the big thing that she kept hitting, and I thought this was odd, what specific factoid did she try to assure the American people that they deserve credit for? One factoid. They lowered the price of insulin to $35 a month. They did this because it was part of the Inflation Reduction Act, a kind of, direct government intervention to ensure that capping the price of insulin for diabetics who need insulin at $35 a month. She said it 5 times. She said it 5 times. Why did she say it 5 times? Is that the only good fact?
What's the percentage? No, what's the percentage of insulin users in Pennsylvania?
Okay. No, it's bizarrely low. That's why I want to get to this. Okay,
yeah, but I think
I'm a type 2 diabetic, so I can speak to this. As an insulin hero. I don't take insulin. You know why? Because most people don't take insulin who have diabetes now. There are 37 million diabetics in the United States. 8 million of them take insulin. They presumably take insulin because they've taken it in the course of their lives and they're used to it and they know how to use it and they don't need to change.
A lot of seniors take it, right?
A lot of seniors take it because that's the drug.
And she's saying it because it's the only thing where prices have gone down since she's been in office.
Right. But not that. So she said that we brought them down to $35. Guess where they were for the vast majority of people before the price was lowered to $35? $40. $452 a year was what the average cost to an individual taking insulin was. And if you're on Medicare, it was 0, by the way. So I don't even know what they're talking about, because if you're in Medicare Part D, you didn't pay for insulin. Trump actually began the program a question of how you were going to pay for insulin, or at least part of it you didn't pay for insulin if you were on Medicare Part D. But in any case, even if you were paying for insulin, what you got, what is the percentage drop from 40 to 35? What is that like? It's not. It's a
little bit over 10%.
A little bit over 10%. So it's not nothing, but it's $5 a month, or $60 a year. So, Yasher Koach to the Biden Harris administration for dropping prices. That means
you have to run on something.
Well done in Hebrew.
She's not going to run on the Afghanistan withdrawal.
Okay, fair enough.
Which didn't come up.
Asked about it.
And also, interestingly, healthcare didn't come
up
either. Bash never asked her about the Medicare for All thing in the reversals too. So she dodged a tough question on that.
I don't think that I think she's expecting people not to know, and maybe she doesn't know herself, that it came down from $40. That was my takeaway, because I remember all the Martin Shkreli stuff, and I think that she's hoping people thought it was it must have been $500 till she brought it down to $35. I don't think that she
By the way, if you were totally uninsured, according to if you had no health insurance whatsoever in the United States, which is like, I don't know, now it's like 7% of people have no health insurance, the total cost for insulin is $990 a year, which again comes out to about $80 a month, which is more than $35 a month. I am not gainsaying the fact that it's not more than $35 a month, but it's not one of those drugs that costs you $6,000 a month, and that if you don't get the government subvention or your insurance won't cover it or whatever, you are really in dire economic straits. Insulin is a cheap drug. It's one of the reasons the drug companies did not protest when the price was capped. In fact, it was Eli Lilly that suggested to the government in 2019, as a kind of trade for the government leaving them alone, that they would cap insulin at $35 a month as part of a negotiation. That was an that was a drug company's idea.
No, so I think the answer is that the campaign said, look, there are a lot of Americans out there who take insulin. Tell them you got them a cheaper price.
But not that many use it. It's 8 million people.
But that's an 8 million person answer.
Okay, maybe I'm being thick.
I go back to how many people in Pennsylvania use insulin.
Right.
That's
okay.
Really,
fair, right.
Some
okay,
internal poll required her to make that insulin.
Okay. All right. Fine. Let me take a break and talk to you about my favorite shirt. You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that Quince linen shirt that I've been talking to you all week about. Love it. I got it from them as a sample, and I'm sold. That linen shirt costs $30 from $30. They got performance polos. They got versatile activewear. This is they're priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands by partnering directly with top factories. Quince cuts out the cost of the middleman and passes the savings on these pieces of summer clothing and others directly to us, and it works only with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. So fill your closet with timeless pieces you'll be wearing for summers to come with Quince. Go to quince.com/commentary for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/commentary to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/commentary. Now, let Kamala Harris be very clear on fracking. She flip-flopped on fracking 4 years ago, and you have no right to bring it up because she said in the debate in 2020, which I completely forgot because I was busy looking at the fly in Mike Pence's hair, apparently, that she no longer supported the banning of fracking, which is something that she said repeatedly in 2019. That was the one thing that Dana Bash pressed her on, asking her 3 times. So she said, I've been convinced. She said, what data did you see to say to you that you should no longer support banning fracking? And she said, we've done such a great job with the Inflation Reduction Act and all of the green features in the Inflation Reduction Act that I'm now convinced that we can solve the climate crisis without banning fracking. Rating on this answer?
I don't remember. Has anyone surfaced the clip where she claimed to have changed her mind on fracking? I'm
going to look it up.
She says that at the vice presidential debate.
At the vice presidential debate
in 2020, she said that she wouldn't.
I remember her hedging on it, but I don't remember her.
She probably adopted Biden's stand at the time, which I don't recall with any exactitude. But I do think it's interesting that subsequent to the interview, Harris's spokesman, Brian Fallon, has come out with trying to explain more comprehensively what she was saying. And that
I have a quote.
Yeah, okay.
Joe Biden will not end fracking. He has been very clear about that. I will repeat, and the American people know that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact. That is a fact. Note what she did not say.
Kamala Harris will not ban fracking.
She did say it just now.
So this is what Brian Fallon has said now.
Okay.
VP Harris explains shifts away from 2019 positions on Green New Deal and fracking by noting how the Biden admin's clean energy investments have proven the ability to make progress on climate without those past stances. Now, interestingly enough, that's not what she said. So we have another example of
clean up on aisle 5.
Clean up on aisle 1, where aides come and try to backfill the comments of the primary actor. We've lived through this with Biden, and it seems like we're going to live through it with Harris as well.
But she did kind of say it. She did say
those were the metrics on time, I think, is what she was trying to say.
Right. Okay. So anyway, she's very clear on this. She will not ban fracking. So she did say flatly what we had only had a spokesman report to us over the last 39 days, which is that she will not ban fracking. Because it's very important to understand that she's behind in Pennsylvania. So she's behind in Pennsylvania, therefore she will not ban fracking.
What about immigration? Because this was actually a question. Okay. She didn't get. She has a tweet still up that says from 2017, an undocumented immigrant is not a criminal. She says in the interview, "Oh, there should be consequences. We have laws." There is no follow-up about whether.
By the way, that is a very interesting observation. She used the word consequences again, 3 or 4 different,
like a toddler on the naughty chair or something.
Did not say we are going to arrest,
deport
people who come into this country and break our laws. We are not going to deport people who come into this country illegally. There will be consequences, which could be a $5 fine.
Right. A stern finger wagging.
Yes, a $5 fine, or
she did something else interesting on immigration, was that she took credit for lower numbers of immigration and said that it was her interventions in root causes in those countries that did it. She said, when Danabash asked her, and she said, "I just want to point out that we did these great things, which are investments in these other countries' economies, and also the immigration numbers have gone down since I did those things."
The root cause task is, I believe, what she called it. So, in an effort to deal with the borders
are problem, yes.
Okay, so I would say again that this getting back to the 5, 4, 3, 2 rating.
Yeah.
This is a target-rich. What happened here tonight, as we're talking, is a target-rich environment for a disciplined Trump campaign. If it is disciplined enough to,
that's an oxymoron.
Right, I know, but to do right by the target, because that immigration answer. She said, "What did you do about immigration?" She said, "When I was Attorney General, I busted transnational criminal gangs." That has nothing to do with immigration.
She ought to go to Colorado and visit what's happening there.
But this is an important point, because this was an important point going into this. On all the flip-flops, which is what we were most anticipating her having to deal with, she dealt with none of them sufficiently, and was kind of let off the hook. Didn't look good. I maintain.
Right.
This was not a plus for her.
Right.
But she wasn't held to account for them. And that was that. And it will stand here.
Interestingly enough, then, so immigration and the economy, according even to the polls that are pretty favorably disposed toward her in the last couple of days, remain firmly Trump issues. So this raises the interesting question of whether, as I say, it's a target-rich environment for him to say, she's not telling the truth, she's whatever. It's not the greatest steward of she's lying, of somebody else's lying, but, Vance can say it, whatever surrogates can say it. I don't know. Politically, she probably can't improve on this.
Right.
She is where she is. The administration has the record it has. She won't say they're lawbreakers. She's not going to get very far in turning those numbers around. So the question is, maybe politically that's okay because Trump and the Republicans have gotten all they're going to get out of this issue anyway, that the people who care about it know exactly where they stand. It matters to them. They're already not going with her in any way, shape, or form. So she says what she says so she doesn't sound irresponsible, but it would only be fan service for Trump to go nuts on her prevarications about immigration. True, false? This is a thought experiment I'm doing here.
Why? I don't think it's wrong for him to go after her on immigration, but he needs to go back to basics. She's been in, she was named the border czar. We know that. Everyone assumed she was in charge of this. It's been bungled. And it doesn't matter if the numbers have come down a little bit very, very recently, which they have. What matters is that there's still no real policy in place for preventing this. And there's still no policy in place for dealing with all of the illegal crossings that have occurred and all the people who are now currently in this country who are literally have broken the law to be here. Nothing. And we have no way to track them. There are children who've been exploited, who have been sent to factories. I mean, this is not a good situation. All he has to do is state the facts of the current situation and say, this is on them. And she has no plan to fix it.
Again, in terms of a disciplined approach, as you say, an oxymoron, she said, we've done a really good job. We've gotten inflation down to 3%. We inherited an economy that was a catastrophe. And we have now done such a great job, right? Okay. Inflation was 2% when Trump left office.
Well, there was something else, by the way, that she said.
Yeah.
And it has to do with the immigration thing. She was asked why they waited 3.5 years to put through those orders. If had the power to do those immediately, why didn't you do them on day one? And she went back to a kind of COVID answer, which was like, well, we had to recover.
We had to recover. The country needed to recover. But her claim is they brought inflation down with the clear suggestion that what they inherited was an inflation rate of 9% that they brought down to 3%. In fact, the inflation rate went up from 2 to 9 during the Biden administration.
And all the economists warned them it would happen.
Right, is now slowly falling to 3%. That is just an out and out misrepresentation. And again, unfortunately for Republicans, they have a candidate whose weakness is in holding other people to the fire when it comes to misrepresentation. But I think the more we're talking about this, the worse I think it kind of gets for her answer by answer. Because when did she give a good answer? How about that? She was a 27-minute interview.
I agree.
Did she give a good answer to something?
I liked where she said that she was going to return the American spirit to where it really lies.
I have a good moment.
The race answer. Yes. When she said next question.
When Dana Bash tried to get her to go after Trump for the comments to the National Association of Black Journalists, and Harris had, I would say, a bemused look on her face, and she said, "It's the same old playbook. Next question."
Yeah,
and that was the one time where I felt there was sincerity and confidence, and I think it's actually to her credit that she does not dwell on race and gender in her public rhetoric. I mean, it's clear that the black vote is extremely important to Democrats' chances in the fall. That's why she's in Georgia. That's why the convention had many, many black speakers, incredibly important constituency in the Democratic Party. But she is kind of just running to be president of the United States. And she's not dwelling on the fact that she would be the first woman president, the first black woman president, the first Indian woman president.
Okay, so you're giving her credit for that. And I would say that just shows there was another moment when she could have done that, right? Which was tell us how you felt about the amazing New York Times photograph.
I know, but it's her grandniece.
No. You know? But she didn't take the bait there either. Because what Dana Bash said was, there was this picture, your grandniece, her pigtails, you're on this.
Personally, I found that a very creepy picture, but maybe that's just me.
Right. Okay. Well, because it was
I didn't know it was her grandniece when I first saw it.
Norman Rock was like a version.
But it was. I didn't know it was her grandniece. No, it looked like a little child being indoctrinated from someone on a. Anyway.
No, I knew it was her. I knew it was her grandniece. I didn't know the first time I saw it, but it literally was almost designed to evoke the famous Norman Rockwell cover of the 4 little girls going into the Little Rock school because of the pigtails. And she said, I had a lot of feelings about it. I was very moved. She could have said, I thought about what it would mean to so many little girls that there was a black woman on stage, on stage, a black.
That means she learned from her primary problem, which was that she was constantly playing race and gender throughout her failed primary campaign.
So, and why is this the case? Because she has a problem with white men. We know this. She has a problem with white men, and she doesn't need to be dwelling on white male voters, let's say, not with white men. And she doesn't need to be dwelling on her singularity. She is trying to make the case that she will be a president for everybody, because by definition, we've lived through an age of identity politics, and she is trying not to. That card is in her deck. She doesn't need to play it.
Right. Well, and the problem is that, the Biden-Harris administration record shows she will play it constantly. The equity video she released, the whole equity versus equality of opportunity stuff, she is all in on that. So I think she's very, very canny by not talking about that.
They're canny and being cagey about it, but they are being canny. And so but these are both. You're giving her credit, or I'm giving her credit on the photo. You're giving her credit on the, she's only now is she recently black. But those are things she didn't answer. Those are questions she did not engage with. So I go back to the question of, when she gave one of her long answers, did she ever do a good job? The CNN panel, when we were just done, they were all like, she did what she needed to do. I don't quite know what it was. Again, she didn't drool, and she didn't say, I haven't been to Europe yet either. But
this gets to
the vibe. No,
no.
Okay.
This gets to a big issue that we haven't yet addressed yet, which was the question about Israel.
Yes,
and was her answer useful? Is there a utility? I think there is for her. I think she can repeat this over and over and over again. See, I think this is the answer to every time we say on the podcast, she's going to have to weigh in on each development that happens in the Middle East.
So we need to remind people what she said. So what she said, I will follow the Biden administration policy. I will always support Israel defending itself and the right to defend itself. October 7th was a horrific day. 1,200 people were murdered. Women were horribly raped. And Israel has the right to defend it. But it matters how this happens. And too many Palestinians have been killed.
And we're working on a hostage deal.
We need, she said 3 times in a row.
Keep saying
we need to
hostage
have a deal.
Hostage deal. Yes.
Yeah. And this deal is a magical deal.
Right.
This deal is the best
unicorn
you've ever heard about.
It will end the war.
It will end the war.
Which will be news to Israel.
Yes.
Because they think it will end the war. Deal is a pause.
Yeah. It will end the war. It will get the hostages home.
And it
will lead to a two-state
solution. Her thinking on the Middle East was clearly like months behind the reality.
Right.
She's still back into, studying the maps and saying the IDF shouldn't go into Rafah. That's where she's at.
Yeah. I'm going to repeat again.
The region has moved ahead.
It is a bizarre thing now to be citing the idea that too many Palestinians have been killed, because Palestinians are no longer getting killed. That is not what is happening in this war now. Israelis are in targeted missions in the tunnels, blowing up the tunnels. We heard today, the IDF estimates that they have now destroyed 80% of the tunnel system. They have secured the Philadelphia corridor, which is the area between Gaza and Egypt. They are lengthening the Philadelphia corridor. They're widening the Philadelphia corridor and lengthening it, and they intend to hold it. And that is to eliminate the threat from weapons coming in that will kill Israelis, that will force Israelis to use violent action against Palestinians. And she is still talking about how too many Palestinians are being killed. So
she's very online. This was a problem in 2019, 2020. She was the most online candidate. She was running on things like, we should ban Trump from Twitter. And I know obviously eventually that happened, but at the time it was like seen as a very silly thing. She's very online. Online people think that that the war today is the same as the war was 6 months ago.
Right.
Because the videos are still circulating.
It's not
the images are still circulating.
They believe it because they want to believe it, because they want to say that Israel's killing too many Palestinians and therefore Israel is in the wrong. Like, that's what they want to say, because it's the advancement of their opinion. But Abe is right. What she's saying, which it's amazing that it has taken the administration this long to get to, is bring the hostages home. We need to bring the hostages home. We need to bring the hostages home. Now, maybe Biden...
That is not what she was saying.
We
need a hostage deal is very different from saying bring the hostages home. Bring the hostages home is what Americans used to say. That means we go in and get our people and we bring them home. No, she said hostage deal.
Okay, fair enough.
Very different.
Okay. So, but we need a deal. We need a deal. We need a deal. We need a deal. Okay. I just want to remind people, not that I'm fact checking her because there's no point to this. Tony Blinken was in the region last week. He said, or whatever, he said, Bibi Netanyahu, I want you to do A, B, C, D, E, and F. And Bibi said, okay, everything you want, I agree to. And then he came out and said, okay, well, now it's in Hamas's court because Bibi agreed to do everything that we asked him to. And she's still where she is. So she is clearly, this is the ground that she's going to stand on. She said nothing different from what she said in the convention speech, basically. But I guess it's sufficient unto the day.
Yeah.
Because she didn't say, she just said the Palestinians deserve to live in dignity and freedom or something like that.
But her new Arab American outreach coordinator, again, we credit the Free Beacon for their excellent reporting, turns out to be very questionable
anti-Semitic
statements. Oh,
I wouldn't say questionable at all. I would say that she
she's
says
a total anti-Semite.
So basically, Jews control the media and that is so congratulations.
She chose that person to be the outreach coordinator to the Arab population in the U.S. So
my congratulations.
Her faith coordinator too, right? Today's announcement was the same. There was her faith coordinator is also somebody who's made comments like that in the past.
Right.
Faith coordinator, the Arab coordinator, the Muslim coordinator,
the Jewish coordinator, Ilan Goldenberg, who stinks on ice also. So this is really, I don't know about her Christian coordinator. Maybe it's a Satanist. Could be their Christian coordinator. I don't know. Anyway,
but it remains a very effective line whenever you're confronted with this. Do you want to do something different from what the Biden administration has done? Do you want to hold back weapons? Do you want to do? We need a hostage deal. It is such an easy BS line that shuts down further questioning. It is a really safe place for her.
Okay,
By the way, it's not.
Give me a second to talk to you about NetSuite. I know, Seth, I don't want to repress you, but the less your business spends on operations, Seth, on multiple systems, on delivering your product or service, the more margin you have and the more money you keep. But with higher expenses on materials, employees, distribution, and borrowing, everything costs more. So to reduce costs and headaches, smart businesses are graduating to NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 cloud financial system. It brings accounting, financial management, inventory, HR into one platform and one source of truth. With NetSuite, you reduce IT costs because NetSuite lives in the cloud with no hardware required, accessed from anywhere. You cut the cost of maintaining multiple systems because you got one unified business management suite. You improve efficiency, and over 37,000 companies have already made the move. So do the math. See how you'll profit with NetSuite By popular demand, NetSuite has extended its one-of-a-kind flexible financing program for a few more weeks. To find out about it, go to netsuite.com/commentary. That's netsuite.com/commentary. One more time, netsuite.com/commentary. Seth, I apologize. Please continue your thought.
No, I don't feel repressed at all. Don't worry.
Okay.
I just, to add to what Abe was saying, though, I want to point out that that's not a refuge that Joe Biden sought. We need a deal, we need a deal. That's one of the reasons she looks so bad doing this, because Biden would talk about, I don't want them going into Rafah, and I told them this, and they have to go here, and then we're doing this, and we're going to have the stupid floating pier was a terrible idea from the beginning, but they did it. Like, Biden didn't hide behind, just give me a deal, just give me a deal. He spoke about the conflict as if he was paying attention to the newspapers that morning, and as if he really was in touch with people in the region. She doesn't. So it's not an administration, it's not a way for her. It's not a way. She didn't learn that from Biden. She can't say, I learned that from watching you. This is a Kamala thing because she's afraid of stepping out on any limb. Okay,
so let's remember. So I don't know what our average is. Our average on her is about a 4.5. On Walls was more like a 3.5. Okay.
We really shouldn't do math, but
whatever. I know. These are not high grade. She, in other words, like, did she clear the bar? I don't know what the bar means. Does she go out of this stronger than she went in? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah,
okay.
I agree.
Did she weaken herself?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. You think
she did this for cover? This was cover, so that she doesn't have to face questioning again.
Did she get the cover?
Yeah.
Okay, so she got cover. So in that sense, you could say it was successful. But Matt, she weakened herself how? Or with whom, maybe is a better way to put it.
I think with voters. I think with independent voters. I think if independent voters are dissatisfied with the Biden-Harris economy, they didn't see anything in that interview to make them happier. She keeps talking about a new way forward, but substantively, there'll be no difference between her administration and the current one, except maybe hers will be a little bit more left-wing in terms of appointments and advisors. So I think that Harris is running against herself in a lot of ways. And her big problem is voters waking up and seeing that she is not capable of being the president of the United States. I'm sorry. And she knows it. That's why she doesn't have the confidence in her answers. She doesn't have a vision for the country. She has no vision for the country.
Okay.
She didn't win a primary. She didn't go through David Axelrod famously said that a presidential campaign is an MRI for a soul.
Right.
She had missed her appointment. She did not go in the machine. She just got handed this nomination and thrust out into the public spotlight so Oprah can go out on stage and say, Kamala Harris, right? I mean, so I just think the longer she's out there, the more exposed she is to the voting public, the worse she will do.
You know, I have to say that because everybody's been making the Selena Meyer Veep comparisons, and we often chuckle on our text chain doing the very same. She's not Selena Meyer. Selena Meyer was a true narcissist who believed that everything out of her mouth was a perfect bit of wisdom and that she deserved the presidency. She was very entitled. Kamala Harris isn't entitled. She's insecure in a way that I think, to Matt's point, suggests she might not actually have the caliber of character that's required of a leader at this moment in our history. And that is worrisome. And her own sort of imposter syndrome, which comes out in moments like these interviews, even though she's been prepped and controlled and has a very, very friendly journalist asking her questions, it's not sustainable, even in this very, very, very short election season.
I want to defend Selena Meyer against the charge that, against Kamala Harris, which is to say that at the end of every episode of Veep, when she somehow steps in it, she knows she stepped in it, and then she blames her staff, or she's like, okay, how am I going to clean up this S show just so I can get through the day? Like there is a sense of understanding that she is constantly skating on the precipice of disaster. And I guess in some sense, you guys all think that she's there too, because she's so insecure and uncomfortable and all of that. And I don't know that she is there. I don't know that she doesn't think that these were great answers and that she really crushed it. Okay.
I'll tell you
Vibe
what
Master, the Vibe Man. Now we need to get the Vibe reading in full, because we have waited now with bated breath.
I don't want my every utterance preference by this, but I think this was a glimpse into what we all have been saying could happen with her. This was a window into how bad she can be. It was nowhere near as how bad she could be, but this was kind of managed. I mean, this was recorded hours before it was aired. We don't know the extent of the editing.
Well, Danabash said that nothing was edited. That's all. All we know is she said, "You'll see everything that you'll see."
Well, you could say nothing was edited, but
okay,
clips were thrown in from her greeting people at diners and things like that. Right. So I don't know what that means actually.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I think it means that she only gave them 25 minutes is what I think. They thought they were getting an hour and they got 25 minutes, and then they had to fill
a lot of B-roll. Yeah.
But the reality that we all suspected, which is that Kamala could step in it at any moment so easily, more likely than not to step in it, has been made manifest by this. I mean, I think I don't think this was in any way a win for her at all.
That's the Selena Meyer thing. That's the Selena Meyer thing, is that any situation can turn into a total PR nightmare. She can take anything and fall on her face about it. But I have a sneaking suspicion that we're not going to see her again.
Well, we're going to see her in 12 days.
At the debate, but I just mean like...
the debate is in 12 days.
Yeah.
On the 10th of September. So...
a normal thing here would
now
be
she can say, I can't do an interview because I got to do debate prep.
You can't do one 20-minute interview. Normally, that drumbeat would continue, and I hope it does. But I got the sense that she has no intention whatsoever.
She might do a fluffy pop culture-y type interview.
She'd go on The View.
She could do like a little appearance, more like a love fest appearance among friendlies.
If SNL were actually airing, she could go on SNL. For 5 minutes.
She needs to after this, actually. Well, she needs to recapture the joy Kamala.
Okay. She'll do one of those double things on SNL where she's there with...
She's not, because SNL's not on... It doesn't air until late September. So she may do it, but she's got a long time to go before they return to the air. I mean, she could do it on one...
on something
no difference between Stephen Colbert and Ari Melber, so she could certainly go on Stephen Colbert and he would just lick the underside of her shoe for 20 minutes anyway, no matter what happened. But I doubt
she wears Chuck Taylors. Did you know that?
So I heard. Okay, so the vibe is bad. We're not going to see her again, but I do think something came clear, which is, Abe, your idea, or the idea in general, that she could coast until November on wafting on the wings of the media, I'm not sure that's true anymore in this sense, which is I think she can avoid engagement until the debate. And then once the debate is over, there's still 2 months and they can't fill the air with nothing. She just gave 20 minutes of stuff that is going to be poured over like the Talmud, because we don't have enough material to go through with her. There are going to be 5,000 op-eds written about this 20-minute interview. They are going to have to supplant it or try to get beyond it or do something. And I want to point out, Campus life starts up again next week. Stuff is already starting on campuses. And not to get everybody worried, but there is going to be an anniversary on October 7th. We have already heard that at the University of Maryland, they are going to permit a pro-Hamas demonstration by Students for Justice in Palestine on the date that 5,000 Israelis and Jews and Druze and others were killed or injured or raped on that anniversary in the United States. And
my impression is that they registered all the open areas for that, so that they would be a pro-Hamas October 7th. Right. In other words, there would be they have a monopoly on it. There can't also be a pro-Israel thing on a lawn.
I mean, we'll see what happens, but I'm just saying that's a whole week that is landing right in smack dab in the middle of the last month of the campaign, and
October surprise.
She cannot not engage. She
may be able to.
She won't.
Okay.
Look, she can't. Yeah.
Interviews are her kryptonite. That was confirmed tonight. Right. It wasn't the worst it could have been, but
she doesn't need to be interviewed. She doesn't need to be interviewed. Look, when I worked on the 1988, when I was writing for Reagan in 1988, Reagan was the main surrogate for the Bush campaign, obviously, and he spoke 3 or 4 times a week and talked about Bush. And we would do material every day that was congruent with the message of the Bush administration, but was in the Reagan speeches. Because the idea was you needed to be out there talking about what there was to get into the news so that Dukakis didn't dominate the news, or the Democrats didn't dominate the news. And it was important to set these markers down. She doesn't have to do it with journalists. She can do it in her rally speeches. She can do it. Her now preference is to do it through, spokesmen, but she can do it without having to talk to, Nora O'Donnell. The question is how much she'll try not to. Mm-hmm. There are all sorts of modalities that don't require direct engagement, face-to-face engagement with a reporter. She can make videos she can be Trump. She can make videos for TikTok or Twitter or whatever. She can make speeches direct to camera. All of that. She just will not be able to be silent about what is going on in the United States for the next 2 months. This closes that period out because she's now on the record.
I don't know that this closes that period out.
Okay.
It shows what would happen if this closes that period out. But this could be an aberration. She could go right back to the bubble.
What would be fun is if Joe Biden, when he returns from the beach in however many weeks, when he's coming back from the beach and resumes his duties as president, continues to tether her to his administration in the most,
they're traveling to Pennsylvania together next week.
Yeah, we should all watch that one quite closely.
Oh, you bet we will. You bet. Anything new we need new to talk about. And we're not the only ones. Like, everybody needs new to talk about. And by the way, what happens if
does she have to be the Jill in that joint appearance where, she's kind of handling him? She said very firmly on this interview tonight, I stand by him. He was great. There's nothing wrong with him. Well, we're going to see him visibly.
The way she described him tonight, I thought he was still running. She described like a robust.
Well, that was the follow-up question that should have been asked. If he's fine, why isn't he running?
Yeah. Well, she did ask. Bash asked it. Kamala did not answer it, and she didn't ask it again. So
that was par for the course, by the way.
That was, exactly. Okay. Well, so there we have it. We'll see whether or not the opinions that we express here are reflected in the general impression that we start collecting overnight and tomorrow. And then maybe it dies off a little bit because it is the Labor Day weekend. And of course, with the Labor Day weekend coming, I should announce that we will not be doing a show on Monday, Labor Day, because we will be celebrating with our families and getting the last school supplies that some of us have to collect. and enjoying the finest fruits of the summer. So we hope you have a wonderful weekend, and try not to think about politics if you can avoid it, and not think about this terrible interview after we finish talking about it. And we will be back with you on Tuesday. So for Abe, Christine, Seth, and Matt, I'm John Podhoretz. Keep the candle burning.